other parts of the world, then good evening or good afternoon, wherever you are. Great to see you guys. I have missed you. I wasn't here last week, or I wasn't here on here with you. I was here in my house, but yeah, missed you guys. I feel like it's been so long. So it's great to have you on here again. Great to see. It's so funny. I always say see, but great to have you with me here in my living room and here hanging out with me and Jan. Happy to have just to get to be with you guys. Last week, Steve filled in for me. So just a big shout out for Mr. Backlund for stepping in last minute. I actually text him at like 8 or 8:30, literally saying, could you please step on? So I got really, yeah, I just kind of got hit by a flu bug, and God is faithful and I'm still alive, and so happy to be with you guys. And it's so funny. You never realize how much you appreciate the healer until you need healing. And it's just so funny how it's true about so many other things in our life. We don't realize how grateful that we are for the provider until all of a sudden we come to a place where I don't know how to provide for this. And then he comes in just in the ways that he does and miraculous. And our heart just gets knitted and overwhelmed by his goodness. And so anyways, so great to be back with you. Adele, good morning. Jessica, great to see you. Shanna, good morning. I don't know if it's Shanna or Shauna. I have friends that spell it the same way. So, but so happy you're with us. Claire, good morning. Claire saying hi, Jan. Oscar, hello. Oh, Ariel, it's so good to see you. Well, to talk to you. Jan wanted me to make sure to show you guys that my shoes were matching my shirt. So that's for Jan. Okay, well, or the week before last, we talked about overcoming the giant of procrastination and defeating that giant out of our life forever. And so I do want to go back and touch on that a little bit and then wrap it up with just how to step into or continue on or grow and advance in this overcoming life that Jesus paid for us. He didn't just pay for us to have, to live and try to make it until you get to heaven, but he said he's come that we might have life and life in abundance, or life until it overflows, or life the way God himself experiences life. And one of the ways that I like to think about the way God experiences life is God looks at everything in life as it belongs to him, because it does belong to him, but he doesn't see an impossibility. He doesn't see a single circumstance that he isn't big enough for, multiple solutions for. I mean, he literally walks his every single day, his day in and day out as an overcomer. And we have been given through Christ Jesus, not only the privilege and the invitation of God himself, but we have been given the life of God himself and the grace of God himself to live in the same way that he lives. And so anyways, good morning, Paul. Good morning, Beth. So great to see you guys. Tora, I think it says Tora from Kenya. Welcome. So glad that you're on here with us. As I'm sitting here procrastinating. Hey, you made it here. You have positioned yourself to receive the word. And I think, man, God's all over that. He's excited about people that he's excited. He loves all of us. You realize that he loves all of us, and he loves us all the same, but we do not all walk in the same benefits, and we do not all experience the same favor and the same attention and affection, because when we turn our affection and our attention to him, it gives him permission to do the things that he wants to do in our life. So the fact that we show up and say, here I am in whatever state I'm in, God's like, oh, I've got plans for you. Okay, so I wanted to just go back and hit a couple things. I won't redo the whole thing, but if you missed the first one, you should go back, because it's really good. It's just powerful to find out, why do we procrastinate? It's great information. And procrastination, one of the things that I said last week is that procrastination, it is an enemy of success. It is an enemy of success in any area of your life. And something that the Lord spoke to me, and I don't remember exactly what it said. I wrote it down, but it was like, oh, if you want to fail, procrastination will get you there. It's but if you want to succeed, then I don't remember how I said it. I only wrote the first part down. I was going over my notes, and he just spoke something to me. So if you want to fail, procrastination, it will actually get you there and quicker. But if you want to succeed, come with me. Come and receive the grace of my life, because God himself is grace. So anyways, so I listed 5 things that why we procrastinate: indecisiveness, not doing, just not making able to make a decision. I don't know what to do, and so I don't do anything. And so I know I need to make a decision. I need to go forward on something, but I'm not sure exactly what to do, and so I just don't do anything. Or perfectionism. I spent some time on this one. That I won't, if I can't do it perfectly, I don't know all of the plans perfectly, then I won't do anything at all. And to me, procrastination, it's code for fear of failure. That's what most I said procrastination, perfectionism. It's fear, it's code for fear of failure. Okay, and then we don't want to. A lot of times we procrastinate something because I don't want to change. They said, it could be chalked up to just laziness, but I don't want to change. I know I need to eat healthy. I know I need to do these. I'm just taking all these things out of my notepad this morning, but I don't want to. Or we'll make excuses or find any other way. But here's something that I think is so important for us to understand is we do want to. It's in us to want to change. It is in us. God has placed it in us. He's put this dominion hunger inside each of us. I don't know if you guys do like the superhero movies, the Superman, the Marvel. We love Marvel movies, but we're drawn to superhero stories. We like the good guys. We like the impossible situation at all odds. We like the stories of the fighters for the underdogs and the underdogs coming back. It was like impossible and they win the game. We love those kind of stories because it's like a picture of us in our humanity being weak and frail and unable, and yet there's something inside us that says there's more, and I actually want to live in a way and live my life in a way that demonstrates the beliefs on the inside of me that there's more to my life than just normal living. And so when we see these movies of superheroes doing impossible things, it's very attractive to us as a human being, and that's because it's in us to be like God. We were made in the image of God. We were made in his likeness to be like him. So anyways, we talked a little bit about that, but one of the things that I wanted to spend more time on today is keys to overcoming procrastination. And so here's something that I find really interesting about procrastination is a lot of times, let's think about this. Maybe you're somebody who you procrastinate doing your taxes, let's say taxes, or maybe it's bill time or whatever it is, or maybe you need to, balance your checkbook, but it's something around your finances and procrastinate. And it's like all year long, you've had time to work on it, but put it off until all of a sudden, tax season comes and now it's the deadline and it's the night before and you're on it. And it's the interesting thing is when we procrastinate something, it's a real good question to ask. What am I afraid of? Why am I afraid of this? Because procrastination is actually, it's a fear that it's hidden on the inside. We think, just put it off. I'll just put it off. But most of the time, delay is not the same thing as procrastination. Delay, maybe I ended up deciding to go do something with my friends. We end up having a dinner. My kids and I would decide to do something. But I'm talking about a chronic area in your life where there's something that needs to get done. You need to do it, or it's something that you want to do, and you chronically procrastinate it and keep pushing it ahead. Now, it could be something that comes around every year that you have to do, like taxes. Or it could be something like, hey, that book that you want to write. You've got a book inside you and the Lord's been talking to you about it and you've been wanting to do it for 2 decades now and procrastinating that. Stop yawning. Or starting that business. It's been in your heart for years to start that business and you want to do it and you begin, it's like you think about it and you start to do it and all of a sudden it's like, it's been 2 months since you've even thought about it. So that's what I'm talking about. Chronic procrastination, chronically putting something away. And here's something that I find very interesting is procrastination. Usually it is in what's embedded. It's embedded in fear. It's embedded. I'm afraid of something. Here's something that's super funny. Taxes is one of those things that a lot of people, I was reading statistics about taxes and so many people will procrastinate that because they think it's just because, it's a lot of work, But the truth is they don't like the way they feel when they have to give an account of their finances. It's the feeling. A lot of times people will procrastinate doing something, you've been asked to give a speech or to preach or teach or to write something or do something and procrastinate it because this fear causes these feelings of insecurity, of unworthiness, and all of a sudden you're faced with something that's big enough or bigger than you that it puts pressure on the inside that you come face to face with the fact that I feel inadequate, or I feel embarrassed, or I feel shame. So a lot of times when we're procrastinating something, it's because I don't want to deal with the feeling that I'm going to have, that emotion that is going to come up when I face that thing. So going back to taxes, and when I do my taxes, all of a sudden I am being faced with, maybe I haven't been a good steward of my finances, or we had planned, when we got married, we had planned on owning, 2 houses by now, and we're still living paycheck to paycheck. And so it's interesting. It's not, when you sit down to actually do the taxes, it never is that big of a deal. It never takes that long. When you step up to do that speech, or to write that, essay, or to have that tough conversation, it's funny how the actual doing of the thing is never as hard as you thought it was going to be. And what it is we have this defense mechanism where we don't like pain. We want to avoid pain. And when I'm faced with something that I feel insecure and inadequate or too small, all of a sudden it's like it puts pressure on the fact that I am not good enough for this thing, or I believe I'm not good enough for this thing. I'll do everything I can to avoid that, until all of a sudden, maybe it comes down to, now I have to get it done because I don't want to go to jail, so we'll do it. So anyways, that's kind of where I want to spend some time on, is that procrastination, the reason why I wanted to really, as this came out, as I said before in the last one, it came out of a conversation I had with Steve, but it's interesting. As I started looking at and mulling it over, seeing all these different areas in my life that I have chronically procrastinated. So I know that I've been wanting to write. I actually have several partial books from years of something where I'd get inspired and I would, oh man, I want to get this out. And so I'd write a bunch, and then all of a sudden, I'd put it away. And then it's interesting how all of these years go by, and that has never left me. That desire has never left me. What I feel, the call of God on my life for that particular area has never left me. And yet I have chronically procrastinated doing that for, I'm not talking like a week or 2 weeks. I'm talking decades now. And so as I just really started humbling myself before the Lord, asking why, I call it procrastination. I'm procrastinating this, but the Lord calls it fear. And what God calls fear, and I find this so fascinating, is when you actually look at something that is limiting your ability to move forward in your life, any area. I need to move forward and having this conversation with my children, or with my coworker, or I need to step into this new season of my life, or I need to have that conversation with my husband. Whatever it is, there's an area in my life that I'm stuck and I need to move forward, and I'm not moving forward because there is something limiting me. And most of the time, we'll call it procrastination, but it's actually fear. And if it's actually fear, then it's faith. Let me say it this way. It is an area in your life where you have a misalignment in your identity. I don't even say misalignment. I say that, but it's really too soft. It's believing a lie about who you are. It is a place in your life where the identity of God is not being shouted over you and in you and through you. And I love the fact that David constantly comes up when people talk about fear. It's because you've got this kid, this child, this enemy comes on the battlefield, and nobody will go after this champion. Nobody will go after the Goliath. He's the enemy, but he's like the enemy of the enemy. He's the epitome of the enemy. You look at him and everybody measures herself against him. Every single Israelite, and the king himself is looking at this Goliath, and they're measuring themselves to this one man, and every single one of them is looking at him going, there's no way I can take on this enemy. And so the thing was, hey, you send out your champion, and if whoever wins, our whole army will be their slaves. And everybody is looking at Goliath, and they're measuring themselves against this thing, and they're saying, I am not enough. There's no way. Not one person in all of Israel. And then this little kid rolls in, coming in to check on his brother, and he hears the railing accusations and the filth that's coming out of this. He calls him the uncircumcised Philistine. And he's like, who in the world would let this man speak to the armies of God, the army of God, the children of Israel? And so you guys know the story. David's like, hey, what's going to be the reward for the person that takes this Goliath down? But the thing that I find is super interesting is David was not this mighty warring warrior like all these other people were. He was a shepherd boy, not just a shepherd, but he was a shepherd boy. But the Bible paints this It just tells this story of David going, oh, I'm taking your head off of you today. The Bible says that David ran at Goliath, ran at his enemy. You guys know the story, so it's redundant, but he picks up the 5 stones, takes a stone, puts it in his little slingshot, and he hurls it at this giant. It's like, if you consider, you see these big, huge Rottweiler dogs and these little bitty Chihuahuas, and you see this little Chihuahua come out and they're like, "Wah, wah, wah," and this dog that could literally one bite eat the whole thing and take off. And it's so funny to me. That's what I think of David and Goliath, is David being this little tiny Chihuahua and Goliath, this monster of a man, and David running at him. And the thoughts in Goliath must have been hilarious, and thinking, it's probably, it's going to be pathetic when I rip this little boy limb from limb. But he had no idea that this little boy wasn't coming at him as a little boy. This little boy was coming with the power of God. He was coming with something so entirely different. Anyways, I'll spend too much time talking about that because I love the story. I love David. I love the fact that David knew something that none of the other Israelites knew something that the king didn't know, knew something that all of the army of the Philistines didn't know, as he understood, I actually have the backing of the king himself, and no one is going to stand before the people of God, and no one is going to be able to stand before God himself. Nothing stands before God. Anyways, like I said, I'll spend too much time. So, but here's the thing, all the rest of the children of Israel, you could have said they were procrastinating. They're coming up with a plan. I'm gonna come after him. Yeah, I'm gonna do some push-ups. I'm gonna, work out. I'm gonna come after him. They're all procrastinating. But no, they were all terrified, because when they looked at Goliath, they were so aware of their failures and their shortcomings and their inadequacies. David looked at him, and David did not consider the frailty of his humanity. He didn't look at how old he was. I'm just a kid. I feed sheep for a living. David looked at this man, and he looks to the God of whom he serves, and he says, oh, you're coming down because God. You're coming down because God is with me, because God's in me. And when God gives me an assignment, my assignment was to protect the sheep. My assignment was to feed the sheep. So when the bear came, it didn't matter that I was 14 or 12. I mean, there's lots of discrepancies over how old David actually was, but we'll say he's 14. So it doesn't matter that I'm 14. It doesn't matter that I've never been a warrior. I'm telling you, a bear came at me, and you know who defeated it? God did, through my hands. A lion came after the sheep. You know who defeated it? God did, through my hands. And so David didn't experience this overwhelming sense of fear. He saw Goliath, and he saw his God. Of course I'm taking his head off. Of course this thing is coming down. So anyways, in looking at things in our life, we a lot of times will delay something, not because that thing is so bad or so great or so powerful, but because of what happens on the inside of us. Is I don't like the way it makes me feel. I don't like the fact that I feel inadequate, and I feel small, and I'm suddenly aware that I'm not enough. And so this is where we're going to spend the rest of the time on today, is who is it that is in your corner? When we procrastinate, we partner with fear. When I procrastinate something, and let's for a moment just move procrastination. What in your life has God asked of you in this season? There's things in your life that's coming. I'm not talking about, the next 10, 15 years. What in your life right now do you know that God is asking of you that you need to take steps to move forward? In fact, some of you, be brave and put it in the chat, and tell the rest of us on here what's something that God is asking of you right now to move forward in. And for all of us, it's different. For me, I know it's writing. It's what's one of the things that I need to do is writing. But could it be, starting that YouTube channel? Maybe God is asking you to get on your social media and encourage somebody. And I don't want to get on the camera. I don't like the way I look, or whatever it is. Or maybe you need to, I mention this a lot of times because I feel like this happens so often, is there's so many of us that we're called to be forerunners in new fields. We're called to be entrepreneurs, and that's been placed on the inside of us to break out of the mold and to start your own business and to do this thing. Defining my avatar. Online teaching. Ariel, thank you. I love that. That's so wonderful. Being fearless. These are so profound because one thing that you don't realize, that a lot of times we don't realize, is that the minute we even write it down or declare it, we've just, I mean, like half the battle just like that, because we actually took something on the inside of us and we brought it out into the light, said, this is what God has called me to do. And just owning by saying, this is something that is on my life. You know, it's interesting how just saying it, how writing it down, cleaning the house, it's so funny. We can laugh at that, but sometimes that is one of the biggest breakthroughs in our life, is cleaning up the area in our life and finding out, oh my gosh, there's grace on me to live in peace. Okay. Leaving my position from working from home to venture out to a better job in the field. That's wonderful. And there's so much grace on us. See, here's the thing that's interesting, and I mentioned this last time, is if God is saying something, so let's use this area. God is telling you to go do online teaching. If God, this is God, the one who created the everything. He created the everything. If he is talking to you and he's saying, I want you to do this. I want you to do online teaching. We're talking about him. He doesn't ask us to do something that he has not graced us to do, doesn't provide the equipping for us to do. What we actually have to do is, one, partner with the fact, it's like get a vision, the belief in the fact that he is speaking to me and this is what he is saying, and I am well able to do this. That is step number one. Because what happens with fear is fear says, I can't do it. I'm not enough. I. Faith says, if God asks me to do it, he is well able to bring this to pass in my life. He is well able to bring this to pass in my life. Homeschool from here, training and equipping my kids. That is profoundly powerful. And the enemy will try to tell us that, you can't teach your kids. How are you qualified to teach your kids? And the crazy thing is, first of all, well, I homeschooled, so maybe we can have another conversation about that later. But the grace of God, it is on our life, and we are well able to do teaching and equipping because there's no better teacher than God. But we'll talk about, there's also getting resources, as you know. I mean, if I'm called to be a brain surgeon, I'm probably going to have to go to school for that. But it starts with not the whole end thing. I don't actually have to know all of the steps to get to there. What is the thing I need to move forward in right now? Number one, man, you just did it. Homeschooling my kids. God's called me to be a watchman. I felt inadequate to go deeper into that. So I've called me to be a watchman. This is what God has called me to do. God has called me to be a watchman. If God has called me to do this, he is able to bring this to pass in my life. I believe him. I believe you. See, when God speaks, there's something that shifts in our life when God speaks. And you think about this for a minute. You guys all know the story of Jesus walking on the water. And more awesome that I feel more awesome that is Peter walking the water, because it's like easy for us to put Jesus in the box. Like, well, yeah, it's Jesus. He can walk on the water. But Peter walked on the water. But I love this, that Jesus is, he tells them to go to the other side. He goes alone to pray. In the middle of the night, they're struggling. And it says that he comes out on the fourth watch of the night. Anyways, he's walking on the water and they see him and they begin to be afraid. And Jesus says, hey, it's me. It's me. It's like, this has never happened before. There's this man walking on the water. And Peter says this, and I just love this. He says, Jesus, if that's you, command me to come to you. And so Jesus says, we don't know exactly how it all went down, but we only know the things that God wanted us to see in the word. So Jesus says, come. And so the Bible says that he gets out of the boat and he begins to walk on the water. That to me is astounding, because here's something that's magnificent. Peter didn't walk on the water. And I think that's so important to sink in. He did not walk on the water. Peter walked on the word of Jesus. Jesus said, come. He said, come. And the crazy thing is, when Jesus said, come, he just changed what was possible. 2 seconds before he said, come, it was impossible. Nobody walks on, it's impossible. I mean, it's a non-issue. Why are we even talking about it? Nobody can walk on the water. But Jesus said, come. Suddenly everything shifted. Now, what was absolutely impossible isn't not only possible, but entirely probable. And now it's actually an invitation from Jesus saying, come out and step on the word that I've spoken. Because when Jesus says something, the creative ability for Peter to be suspended above that water was in the one word when Jesus said, come. Where did we see that? We see it through the entire creation story and all of what's still happening today. But God's, he looks out over the chaos. And he says, let light be, or light come. And what happened is the word of God. It is the word of God had the creative ability to bring itself to pass. When Jesus said, come to Peter, it had the creative ability to produce a possibility out of an impossible circumstance. Jesus still does that in our life today. So if Jesus is saying, come, if Jesus is saying, teach online, if Jesus is saying, homeschool your kids, there's a creative ability of God himself in that invitation to bring itself to pass. That is astounding to me. And I love the fact that Peter gets out of the boat. He walks on the water, and you guys know the stories. He walks in the water, and then it says, but when he saw, first of all, he sees Jesus. He sees Jesus walking on the water, and there's something happened on the inside of Peter when he saw Jesus doing the impossible. That dominion thing that he was created to be like God rose up inside him. And I think he's like, if he can do it, I can do it. And that is exactly what should be happening in our life. If he can do it, I can do it. Anything that Jesus does or has done is an invitation to us to be like him. And so he says, come. Peter gets out of the boat, but it says that when he saw the waves boisterous and he saw the wind, he started to sink. So, he calls out to Jesus, save me. And Jesus, comes and he rescues him. And I love the fact that Jesus said, why did you doubt? Why did you doubt? What happened? But to me, it's so funny, like details in the Bible. When Peter saw the waves, when Peter saw the wind, when he saw the craziness of the storm, he doubted them. But I love this. He is a fisherman. I just wonder how many times on the days when the sea is perfectly calm would it have been reasonable for him to think, I could probably walk on water? I mean, it just never happened. It was not about the waves. It was not about the wind. What it was about is all of a sudden Peter's standing out on the water, and then he realizes, what am I doing? I'm just a fisherman. I'm not like him. I'm not supernatural. I'm not miraculous. I'm not a teacher. I'm not a good communicator. I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not smart. I'm not intelligent. I didn't do this. I'm not pretty enough. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough favor. I mean, fill in the blanks. Anytime God calls us to do something, we have this momentous opportunity to partner with when he says, come, we can step out on the waves and partner with the word that came out of his mouth that has within itself the ability for us to do anything that he's asked us to do, or we can look back at ourselves and realize, I can't do this. And so when Peter got his eyes off of Jesus for a moment and he looks at his circumstances, then he began to sink. And I love the fact that he got out. To me, the big deal is not that he sank. Like, that is, to me, is a non-issue. Who cares that he sank? He would have already sank. They all would have already sank. That's just kind of the nature of stepping out on the water. You're all going to sink. But Peter did something profound, and that is he stepped into the dominion of his spirit man and did as Jesus did. And I'm telling you today, any area of your life where there is procrastination, and I'm talking about chronically putting off moving forward in something that God has asked you to do, man, look at that thing and go to God and ask him, what is the lie that I'm believing here? There's obviously a lie that I'm believing because you keep putting this pressure on me to move forward, but it is my limiting beliefs about myself that is causing me not to move forward. And so, gosh, I've talked too much because here I am at 28 minutes in. One of the things that I wanted to, let me see, there's something that I wanted to read to you guys really quickly. Okay, I won't read the whole, I was going to read this part, but you'll have to go to it. In Matthew 25, Jesus is saying, hey, the kingdom of God is like this. This man, he goes into a far country. And when he goes into a far country, actually, I do need to read one part to you, but it says that he calls his own servants to himself. And this to me is so important. It says he calls his own servants to himself. So he's traveling to a far country. He calls his own servants and he delivers his goods to them. And you guys know this. That's the parable of the talents. So he gives to one, he gives 5 talents according to his own ability. And then he gives to one, 2, and then to another he gives 1. Okay. But here's the thing that struck me. The kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country. He calls his own servants to them, and then he delivers to his servants his own goods, and he gives them according to their ability. And so you guys know the story. The guy who had 5, he went out and got 5 more. The guy who had 2 went out and got 2 more. The guy who had 1 said, Lord, when you came back, I was so terrified. I was so afraid, and I know that you're a hard man. And so I took your talent and I buried it to the ground, and here you go. You can have it back. And I love the fact that Jesus, the thing that stood out to me is it says he delivered to them his own treasures. And I'm telling you, if God is calling you to do something, and he is, he actually has put his ability inside you. He knows what is in you because he put it there, and he has the ability to bring it to pass. What he needs is your agreement. He needs your agreement. Okay, I am going to wrap this up right now. But I just want to tell you guys that procrastination it's ending in your life right now because the revelation that you have what you need already on the inside of you. And by owning it, I actually just dare you guys to get on your social media or call your friends or call somebody, your coworkers, tell them what you are moving forward in your life. Tell them what God is asking you to step forward in. And then I want you to just go into the presence of the Lord and begin to ask God, what is the truth about this? Show me the lies that I'm believing. Tell me the truth of what this is, and then begin to do what you know to do. Make your declarations. Begin to declare that this is who you are. This is what God is doing in you. And then next week when I see you, I would love for you guys to come back and just tell us, share with each one of us what you have moved forward in. Because God, thank you, Claire, he needs your agreement. He doesn't need your ability. He's got the ability. He needs your agreement and your faith in him. Love you guys so much. Have a fantastic week. Next week, I am actually going to be on Tuesday because I am going to be in Oregon on Thursday. So I'll see you guys on Tuesday at 9 a.m. Have a fantastic week. Remember to be the biggest, most profound prophetic voice you have ever heard, and go after encouraging yourself in the Lord and then encourage others. Have a wonderful